Every action a person takes is a reflection of their inner world, and whether they know it or not, they leave behind signs, patterns, and behaviors that speak louder than their words. A woman who cheats cannot completely hide her actions because human nature always reveals itself through subtle cues, changes in energy, and shifts in consistency. Awareness of patterns is the first step to protecting yourself, not just in relationships, but in every area of life. If you can train your mind to see beyond what is being said and instead pay attention to what is being done, you begin to recognize truths that many others overlook. Patterns are not random. They are repeated behaviors that give away what someone truly values, what they are prioritizing, and where their attention is being directed. When a woman's loyalty begins to shift, the consistency you once knew starts to fade. It may begin with something as small as changes in her communication. Where she once responded with eagerness, there may now be hesitation. Where conversations once felt natural and open, they begin to feel rushed, shallow, or distracted. People can pretend for a while, but they cannot pretend forever. Communication is not just about words. It's about tone, timing, and energy. And when the rhythm changes, it is a pattern revealing itself. Your awareness of that shift is not paranoia, it is clarity. Another way patterns show themselves is through time and attention. Every human being invests time into what matters most to them. If you notice that the time she once dedicated to you is being redirected elsewhere, if her attention seems consumed by something she cannot fully explain, that is not coincidence. It is a pattern forming right before your eyes. This is not about accusing or living with suspicion. It is about recognizing that time is a resource no one can fake. If you are no longer her priority, the pattern of her choices will expose that truth more than her words ever will. Energy never lies. Even when someone tries to mask their behavior, their energy will betray them. Human beings carry a frequency, and when it changes, you feel it. You may not always be able to explain it, but you sense it. The latter feels forced. The affection feels mechanical. The eye contact feels shorter. The warmth feels colder. These are not isolated moments. They are part of a larger rhythm. A cycle repeating itself that your awareness can pick up on if you are truly paying attention. A woman who cheats may try to cover her tracks, but her energy will always create a disconnect between what she says and what she shows. Awareness of patterns also means understanding history. If someone has shown certain tendencies in the past, they are likely to show them again unless deep transformation has taken place. The greatest mistake many people make is believing that words erase patterns. Promises are easy to make, but patterns require discipline and consistency to break. If you notice that excuses start sounding familiar, if you hear the same justifications repeated, you are not hearing growth, you are witnessing the recycling of patterns. Your awareness must also stretch beyond the obvious. Cheating is not only about physical acts, it begins in the mind, in the attention, in the shift of emotional investment. When she begins to emotionally check out, when conversations become less about the relationship and more about external distractions, when she no longer shares her inner world with you the way she used to, these are all signals of where her loyalty is leaning. Patterns show themselves in silence as much as in words. Pay attention to what is missing as much as what is being presented. Awareness is not about becoming suspicious of everything. It is about being grounded enough to see reality as it is, not as you wish it to be. Too many people blind themselves with hope, with denial, with the desire to hold on to what is familiar, even when the patterns are screaming the truth. But life rewards those who pay attention. When you ignore patterns, you give permission for cycles to continue. When you recognize them, you give yourself the power to make choices from a place of strength rather than illusion. Every pattern is information. It is not there to hurt you, it is there to teach you. If you can train your mind to be observant, to notice changes in communication, shifts in time and attention, disconnects in energy, and the recycling of excuses, you position yourself to see the truth clearly. This level of awareness doesn't just protect you in relationships, it builds a mindset that will serve you in every area of your life. Because the same principle applies to business, friendships, health, and success. People always reveal themselves, and the world always leaves clues for those who have trained themselves to see. There is a voice inside of you that speaks without words, a subtle inner knowing that rises up when something is not right. It is the feeling in your stomach, the sudden unease, the quiet whisper that tells you to pay attention even when everything on the surface looks normal. That voice is your intuition, and in moments of uncertainty, it becomes your greatest guide. The problem is not that people lack intuition. The problem is that they silence it. They hear it, they feel it, but they convince themselves it's just imagination or insecurity. Yet time and time again, life proves that ignoring your intuition comes at a heavy cost. Trusting your intuition is not about fear or suspicion. It is about honoring the intelligence that is built into you, the wisdom that sees beyond what the eyes can perceive. When a woman is unfaithful, she may try to cover her actions with words, gestures, and reassurances, but your intuition will always pick up on what your logical mind cannot yet explain. You may feel a sudden heaviness when she walks in the room. You may notice a shift in her energy that doesn't match her story. You may sense a gap between her words and her actions. Your mind will try to rationalize it, to explain it away, to tell you not to overthink, but your intuition is speaking. The question is whether you will listen or betray yourself by ignoring it. Self-betrayal begins not when someone lies to you, but when you lie to yourself about what you already know deep inside. Intuition is a form of truth that bypasses logic. It doesn't give you details, it gives you feelings. And feelings are the earliest signals of what reality is about to reveal. For many people, ignoring intuition becomes a habit. They sense something, they doubt themselves, they dismiss the feeling, and later, when the truth comes out, they remember that they knew all along. This cycle repeats until you learn that the voice within you is not to be silenced. It is not paranoia, it is perception. It is not insecurity, it is intelligence. The sooner you learn to trust it, the stronger it becomes. Trusting your intuition does not mean reacting impulsively. It does not mean accusing or attacking without evidence. It means allowing yourself to sit with that inner feeling long enough to observe what unfolds. When you honor your intuition, you start paying attention with sharper awareness. You notice the pauses between words, the hesitation in responses, the sudden need for privacy, the avoidance of certain topics. You begin to connect the dots that logic alone would miss. Intuition is like a compass. It points you in the direction you need to look more closely. The truth is that people reveal themselves in layers, while actions and patterns expose them over time. Intuition often catches the first shift before it becomes obvious. That's why some people say, "I don't know how, but I just knew." The knowing doesn't come from evidence. It comes from the inner radar that all of us possess. And when it comes to relationships, this radar becomes even more sensitive because emotional bonds create energetic ties. You feel when that tie is weakening, when attention is drifting, when something is being hidden. You may not want to admit it, but your inner knowing refuses to stay silent. The danger of ignoring intuition is that it keeps you trapped in cycles of disappointment. Every time you silence your inner voice, you allow deception to continue longer than it should. You give more chances than are deserved, you invest more energy into a situation that has already shifted, and you delay the process of healing and moving forward. Trusting your intuition is not about living in suspicion. It is about valuing yourself enough to listen to the signals your own soul is giving you. It is about believing that your inner wisdom is valid, that you don't need external confirmation to honor what you feel. There is also another layer to intuition. It does not only warn you of betrayal, it also guides you toward alignment. The same inner voice that alerts you when something is wrong is the same voice that nudges you when something is right. It is the same power that helps you recognize opportunities, connections, and choices that align with your highest good. When you ignore it, you not only risk being deceived, you also risk missing out on the blessings and doors meant for you. Trusting your intuition is a mindset, a way of living that brings clarity, strength, and peace into your future. The reason many people struggle with intuition is because they are conditioned to value external voices over internal ones. They seek validation, they ask for opinions, they wait for proof, but in doing so, they disconnect from the one source of guidance that never lies, their own inner knowing. In relationships, this shows up when you sense a shift but allow sweet words to override your feelings. You tell yourself, maybe I'm imagining things, or I don't want to seem insecure. But deep down, you already know the truth. The cost of doubting yourself is that you end up carrying wounds that could have been avoided had you trusted your first feeling. To live with strength is to train yourself to honor intuition in every area of life. It means listening to the whispers before they become screams. It means giving value to what you feel without needing the world to validate it. It means understanding that your intuition is the most honest friend you will ever have, one that sees through masks and facades long before your eyes can. And in the context of betrayal, it means trusting that when your inner voice tells you something is off, you owe it to yourself to pay attention rather than explain it away. When betrayal enters your life, the easiest thing to do is to point the finger outward, to fixate on the person who cheated, to replay their lies, to dwell on what they did wrong. And while it's natural to feel the sting of hurt and anger, staying in that space only traps you in a cycle of blame and pain. The truth is, when someone cheats, it says more about their character than it does about your worth. But if you keep your mind chained to their actions, you rob yourself of the power to grow from the experience. Shifting from blame to growth, excusing what happened, it's not about refusing to let it define you. It's about deciding that you will not be reduced to a victim of someone else's choices, but instead you will rise as someone who learned, evolved, and became stronger through it. Blame is heavy. It keeps you stuck in the past, forcing you to replay the same scenes over and over again. You ask yourself questions that will never have satisfying answers. Why did she do it? What did I do wrong? Could I have prevented it? This cycle of questioning leaves you drained, and yet it produces no healing. Growth, on the other hand, demands that you stop asking why she cheated and start asking what this experience is here to teach you. Life rarely sends us pain without purpose. Hidden inside betrayal is a lesson, a mirror, a wake-up call. The lesson may be about boundaries, about self-respect, about paying attention to signs earlier, about loving yourself enough not to tolerate dishonesty. Whatever the lesson is, you only discover it when you shift your perspective away from blame and toward growth. Growth begins with ownership. Not ownership of the other person's actions, but ownership of your response. You cannot control what someone else chooses to do, but you can control whether their actions destroy you or develop you. When you stop obsessing over how unfair it was and start focusing on how you will rebuild, you step into your power. You begin to recognize that while pain was handed to you, healing is your responsibility. That shift alone is transformative, because suddenly, instead of seeing yourself as someone broken by betrayal, you see yourself as someone being refined by it. When you embrace growth, you no longer view betrayal as the end, but as a transition. The end of illusions, yes, but also the beginning of clarity. You begin to see patterns you missed, truths you ignored, boundaries you failed to set. And this awareness prepares you for a stronger future. It allows you to say, this happened, but it will not happen to me in the same way again because I have learned, I have grown. I see differently now. Growth equips you with wisdom that blame can never provide. Another part of shifting into growth is recognizing that carrying resentment only poisons you. Holding on to anger and bitterness feels justified, but it doesn't harm the one who betrayed you as much as it harms you. Resentment keeps your heart heavy and your mind clouded. Growth asks you to release, not for their sake, but for yours. Release does not mean reconciliation. It does not mean trust is restored. It simply means you refuse to let what happened continue to live rent-free in your mind. Growth means taking your energy back, reclaiming your focus, and investing it into building a future that honors who you are becoming, not what you've lost. Betrayal can also reveal how much you value yourself. Growth forces you to examine the standards you hold, the boundaries you enforce, and the way you allow people to treat you. When someone cheats, it creates a moment of decision. Will you allow this behavior to define what you deserve, or will you use it as a reminder to demand better? Growth pushes you toward the latter. It whispers that you are worthy of loyalty, worthy of honesty, worthy of love that is consistent and true. The pain you feel is not a reflection of your weakness. It is evidence of your capacity to love deeply. And that capacity, once redirected, can become the very fuel that propels you into becoming stronger, wiser, and more discerning in the future. There is also freedom in growth because it teaches you that no one else holds the keys to your peace of mind. Betrayal only shatters you when you give someone else too much power over your happiness. Growth rebuilds that foundation within yourself. It reminds you that happiness is an inside job, that no matter who walks away or who betrays you, your worth remains untouched. When you internalize this truth, you stop seeing betrayal as something that ruined you and start seeing it as something that refined you. Growth is not instant. It requires patience with yourself. It requires allowing the pain to hurt, but not allowing it to linger unchecked. It requires reflection, self-honesty, and sometimes uncomfortable realizations about how you ignored red flags or silenced your intuition. But within those realizations lies your strength, because once you learn, you cannot unlearn. Once you see clearly, you cannot go back to blindness. That clarity is the gift that betrayal leaves behind if you are willing to shift from blame to growth. Your future does not change by accident. It changes the moment you decide to reprogram the way you think. The betrayal, the disappointment, the heartbreak, those experiences are not the real enemy. The true enemy is the mindset that keeps replaying them, the mental habit that drags yesterday's pain into tomorrow's possibilities. If you keep carrying the old story, the old wounds, and the old disappointments into your future, you end up living the same cycle in different forms. Changing your mindset is not about forgetting what happened. It is about refusing to let what happened control the direction of your life. It is about making a conscious decision to rewrite the script you live by so that your past becomes a reference point, not a residence. The human mind is powerful, and it works in patterns. Whatever you focus on expands, whatever you believe shapes your choices, and whatever you repeat becomes your reality. If your mind is full of fear, distrust, and bitterness because of betrayal, you will unknowingly project those emotions into your future. You will build walls that keep out not just pain, but also joy. You will sabotage opportunities because you expect disappointment. You will misinterpret genuine love because you are still filtering everything through the lens of the past. This is why mindset is everything. Until you change the way you think, you cannot change the way you live. Reprogramming your mind begins with awareness. You have to notice the thoughts you are repeating every single day. Do you wake up replaying what she did to you? Do you walk around with anger bubbling under the surface? Do you automatically expect betrayal from every person you meet? These are signs that your mind is trapped in an old loop. And as long as you keep thinking those thoughts, your future will be nothing more than an extension of your past. To change it, you have to disrupt the pattern. That means consciously choosing new thoughts, new beliefs, and new perspectives, even when your emotions resist. Changing your mindset is not pretending everything is fine. It is not about forcing positive thoughts on top of unhealed wounds. It is about deciding that you will not allow the wound to define you. It is about processing the pain, learning from it, and then creating a new vision for yourself that is bigger than the betrayal. Instead of saying, "I can never trust again," you start saying, "I will trust myself more deeply than ever before." Instead of saying, "All relationships end in pain," you affirm, "I am worthy of love that is honest, stable, and true." These shifts may feel uncomfortable at first, but the mind reshapes itself through repetition. The more you affirm new truths, the more they take root and the more they guide your future. Visualization becomes a powerful tool in this process. If you can see yourself beyond the pain, if you can imagine a version of you that is healed, thriving, and full of clarity, you give your mind a new target. Your brain does not distinguish between imagination and reality. It simply responds to what you feed it. When you hold an image of yourself as strong, wise, and resilient, your actions begin to align with that image. You start walking, speaking, and making decisions from a place of empowerment rather than fear. Slowly, the old mindset of victimhood gives way to a new mindset of victory. It is also important to control your environment because your surroundings feed your mindset. If you surround yourself with people who constantly remind you of your pain, who speak negatively, who encourage you to stay bitter, you will struggle to reprogram your thinking. But if you immerse yourself in voices of strength, wisdom, and growth, if you feed your mind with books, messages, and conversations that uplift you, your mental programming begins to change. Your environment is either reinforcing your old story or helping you write a new one, and the choice is always yours. Another critical part of changing your mindset is forgiveness, not necessarily for the person who wronged you, but for yourself. You must forgive yourself for not seeing the signs sooner, for ignoring your intuition, for holding on too long. Self-forgiveness breaks the chain of guilt and self-blame that keeps you stuck. When you release yourself from that weight, you make room for new beliefs to take root. You remind yourself that mistakes are not the end of the road. They are lessons that prepare you for the journey ahead. As you reprogram your mind, you begin to notice subtle shifts. You stop talking about the betrayal as your defining story. You stop seeing yourself as someone who was cheated on and start seeing yourself as someone who overcame. You stop expecting pain in every relationship and start expecting respect, honesty, and love. And because you have changed your mindset, your energy changes. You attract different experiences, you make different choices, and you create a different future. The truth is, your mind can either be a prison or a passport. If you let it stay trapped in the past, it will lock you into the same cycles of pain. But if you take control of it, if you deliberately choose to build new beliefs, it will carry you into a future that looks nothing like your past. The betrayal was not meant to destroy you. It was meant to awaken you to the power of your own mind.